I'm just going to teach a framework called the 7 stages of consciousness. It's a Vedic tradition piece of theory. That is the area of study that I'm most familiar. Yeah, I would say I'm most familiar with this. This has had one of the biggest impacts on the way that I see life. The Vedic tradition, which is where Hinduism came from, and yoga came from, and Ayurveda came from. Meditation, in a large degree, came from this, because a lot of Buddhist and Taoist philosophy also originated from the Vedic tradition, which is ancient Indian wisdom. And it's the oldest living set of documented spiritual wisdom or structured wisdom. It's 10,000 or so years old. Anywho, they've got a framework called the 7 stages of consciousness, the way that someone can evolve in consciousness. The first 3 stages of consciousness are more prior to spiritual awakening. You have sleeping, dreaming, and waking. So if you can sleep, you're asleep, you're awake, you're dreaming. These 3 states, it's a state of consciousness that is prior to a spiritual awakening. And someone can be in that zone without having their spiritual awakening and just going through life. And so if someone's in one of those 3 stages and they haven't yet had a spiritual awakening, they're viewing life through a different lens. And so I'm pre-framing this because when I share the next 4 stages of consciousness, it gives context to why someone's map of the world may be different, why someone might choose to do something like join a particular religion. So the 4th stage of consciousness is called transcendence consciousness. And transcendence consciousness is when someone gets a glimpse or a connection to the source of their creation. When someone has transcended, they've transcended their human experience and they're in a state of complete being, oneness, divinity, isness, the quantum realm, supernatural state, superconscious state. It's got a lot of different labels, but they touch it. The state of consciousness, it's a state. It's temporary. They will oscillate into that transcendent state. Cool, they're in a transcendent state of consciousness now. But then when someone comes out of, let's say they're using a meditation to get into transcendence, they come out of their transcendence meditation, and now they've oscillated back into their humanity, back into a normal state of, let's say, waking consciousness. Unless someone falls asleep in that meditation experience and then they go straight into sleeping consciousness, or maybe into dreaming consciousness. But these are the first 3 stages. The 4th stage is transcendence. Okay, now when someone experiences transcendence for the first time, it's in a way, it's a spiritual awakening. It's a experience that has the potential to shift the way that someone understands and approaches their life. Very, very impactful and profound experience. And it's something that can only be experienced because where we came from can't be visited because it's invisible, non-manifest in essence. It just is. The quantum realm, there's this idea in science that an electron doesn't exist until it's observed, and then when it's observed, then it exists. That is similar in something that, how can you explain that? I can't go and visit the source of my potential physically because it's unmanifest. It's not physical. It's non-physical. It's non-manifest. And so for someone to get to see the world through a different lens, if someone hasn't yet had a transcendent experience that was powerful enough to awaken them to, oh my gosh, there's something more here in this life, they haven't had that yet. Their perspective of life is different to someone that has. And so, of course, that person that doesn't understand that is going to potentially judge that because they don't get it. I was the same. When I was a leader and I had a bunch of staff in the business that I ran, I was definitely not awakened I was definitely ignorant, and I was in sleeping, waking, dreaming consciousnesses, those first three stages. If I had a staff member that meditated when my whole objective in life was being intensely attached to big layers of success, if someone was meditating, the only possible way that I could see value and merit in someone doing that is if it was going to support them hitting the KPIs in their job where they worked for me. And so I didn't see it as being that powerful, because if someone wasn't hitting their KPIs, but they were still choosing to meditate, I'd be like, what a waste of time. It's not even helping you, because I didn't understand the experience of the transcendence. So I would not be able to give a fair judgment on someone else's decision making, because I just don't get it, because I've never experienced it. So it's experiential. So on the same degree as that little reference or example, if someone's chosen to transition to becoming a full-time Christian and ditch their other spiritual beliefs, in my opinion, it's come from them evolving in their state of consciousness, which means that anyone else that hasn't evolved in that state of consciousness can't give an accurate perspective on that situation, because they've never experienced the yearning to make that same transition, because it hasn't yet been relevant for them to make that kind of decision in their life, because they're probably, me included, operating from a less evolved state of consciousness. Food for thought. So that's the fourth state of consciousness. The fifth state of consciousness is called cosmic consciousness. And that is a state, according to Vedic wisdom, that someone is established and connected so much to the transcendent state that they actually start to prioritize being more than existing in the world. They actually they've got so much reverence and love for the transcendence that their life starts to reflect more of a reclusive energy. They want to be deep in that space. They want to be transcending. They want to be connecting to oneness, because it's so pure and so beautiful and so expansive that why would they want to spend time in duality, in the polarities of the manifest world, with pain and pleasure, good and bad, happy and sad, right and wrong, judgment? Why would they want to experience that when they could experience pure love and feel that wholeness that comes with that? And that's a state of consciousness called cosmic consciousness. And it usually looks like someone experiencing a bit of apathy in their life. What's the point? I know a lot of people, when they do Dr. John Demartini's work, kind of get confronted with the predicament of, okay, John, Dr. Demartini, you're saying that there is no better or worse. Well, what's the point of me doing anything in my life? If having no business or having a really big business is exactly the same, why would I even try to start a business? Makes no sense. My life's going to be equally good or bad regardless, so what's the point of anything? And that apathy is experienced by people that enter cosmic consciousness, because they go, cool, well, when I'm equanimous, when I'm in equilibrium, I'm seeing everything as equal. I'm not judging things as good or bad, right or wrong, better or worse. I'm just seeing things as equal and seeing the beauty in everything, kind of. But there's some apathy there. What's the point? And that's a state of consciousness people enter called cosmic consciousness. The sixth state of consciousness, which is pretty rare, a very, very small amount of people enter this state of consciousness, is called God consciousness. Now, God consciousness is when someone takes that connection to oneness and creates a visceral association that everything that they revere about the divine is actually everything that is manifest in this world. So they love, in cosmic consciousness, they love the unmanifest, the non-duality, isness, timeless love, oneness, the divine. They've connected to that so much, they love it. They want to be there all the time. But then they pivot in God consciousness to going, oh my gosh, everything that's ever been created, everything in the real world, all of life, is that unmanifest world that I love so much, just in different flavors in life. Oh my gosh, everything that I see now and experience now and do now as a human being is just pure love. Everyone I meet, everyone I see, everything that happens to me in my life, everything about life is so beautiful. And they're looking through life with what I've heard Preston Smiles say, God goggles. God doesn't look at things as good, bad, right, wrong. Oh my gosh, I can't believe this person's not yet broken through in their business. And oh my gosh, is she still single? Pathetic. She's never going to meet someone. That's not what God's thinking. God sees everything as beauty because the whole purpose of life is to have manifested and created different flavors of itself in separate forms. And like Ram Dass says, we're all just God dressed in drag, different versions of God, where God is every player in the movie, every actor in the play, every player in the game. God is all of it, just dressed in different forms with different identities. And Johnny Pollard also says that the strongest force in the entire universe is ignorance. Because ignorance is the energy that tricks someone to forget the truth of what they are, which is complete wholeness and oneness. We're all the same entity, just in separate forms. And so anyway, when someone goes into God consciousness, they recognize that and experience that as a state. I understand that intellectually, and I've experienced transcendence, but I don't see that when I look through life. Someone says something to me and I can get triggered by it, and why is that happening? And damn you, and I'm separate. I'm feeling separate, and there's division, and there's me living in my head, living in my fear consciousness to say, oh my gosh, I'm unsafe. Damn you. I'm going to judge you. I'm going to judge that as good because it's going to help my safety. I'm going to judge that as bad because it's detracting from my safety. And that's how I perceive life a lot of the time. So I'm definitely not in God consciousness, but it is a state. And what happens is when someone's in God consciousness, their idea, this is going to take some attuned listening, but their idea of God, in Vedic wisdom, God has got lots of different labels and lots of different flavors. But there's a term called Ishwara. Ishwara means supreme being. And the theory in the Vedic tradition is that when someone connects to God consciousness, their idea of God personified is different in different people. So some people, based on their unique soul flavor and personality and ego and whatnot, might revere and go, oh my gosh, the sun is the God. And I love the sun so much because the sun, as a personified version of isness or oneness, as a personification of the creative potential of the universe, the source of all creation, I'm going to give that a label so I can connect to it more. That's the sun. The sun is my idea of God, my Ishwara. And now I love and revere the sun. Thank you, sun. You created everything that I love so much. You are my absolute love and divine. And I want to devote myself to you and be this devoted approach to everything through that lens. That's an evolved state of consciousness, God consciousness.